Hey YouTube, I want to show you something here about body putty and how to get it flat, smooth and straight that is probably as old as ancient Egypt, because I'll tell you, the concept is the same in a lot of different things. For instance, I was a builder, which, you know, if you watch my channel you know that, and I probably poured thousands of yards of concrete. And the purpose, with concrete, what you do is you end up having what they call form boards. Okay, so you have two boards and you fill the thing with concrete, and then you take another board and you screed the concrete by resting it on the both other boards. In other words, you'd rest on this one and on this one, and you'd be going down there screeding it off. That's what they call screeding. And what that does is it brings the level of the concrete to the level that you want, and it's fairly smooth. Knocks some stones down and whatever. I'm not going to get into concrete work here, but I just want to show you the concept of screeding, okay, and how you get a flat surface. Alright, well, guess what? This is basically the same thing here. Now, what I've done to speed this up, because I really don't have, this camera just is crap, and I do got to get another one. What I've done is I've taken this panel here, and I've covered it with body putty, because the panel's not perfect. I mean, I made it by hand in here. You know, I hammered it out, so it's got some imperfection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just lightly put a coat of paint on this, and you can use almost anything. You don't have to be any specific paint, Duplicolor or whatever. I'd use any kind of paint I have. I don't care what kind it is, just so it dries fast. Now here's the point. When you start sanding, right, now I'm going to use this sander, and you don't, you know, if you say, oh, I don't have one of those sanders, you know what, I very seldom use this. Very seldom. You know, if you wipe the dust off of it, you'd find out it's like brand new, but I just want to show you something quick. Okay, so here's what I want to show you. What you want to do is you want to read this, alright? And here's how you go about reading this. Now, obviously the sander hits here, and the sander hits there, so that means that this is a low spot, okay? So if this is a low spot, it means it needs more filler. However, in order to be as good as you can be with this, you might say, well, I'm not down to the metal here or here, so maybe I'll take more off and find out if this really is low, or if it's, you know, if it's okay, but this is high. So the way you find it out, it's like a balancing act. You're looking to touch metal. You don't want to dig into the metal, you just want to touch the metal. So I'm going to run a sander over this until I actually come to the metal. And the bigger the pad you have, like this, is good. Now, unfortunately, most sandpaper, you know, comes in small pieces like this, and this is some 3M 80 grit, which I really love, because this stuff, it cuts, you can blow the dust out of it and go from there. And I usually do this with a paint stick. Now I've got some giant paint sticks which work really good if you have this type of sandpaper, you know, the full length one, but they have to be the sticky kind to really work nice. But what you're doing here, and if you look, I don't know if you can see, but if you put that across so you can see it's touching here, touching there, not touching there. So what I want to do is I want to continue working over the top of this. Now I can do it with this short sandpaper if I don't go too far away from what I have there. Okay, so in other words, I'm gently holding this. I'm trying not to flex anything. And you can see how nice that sandpaper cuts. Look at all that stuff that's falling down. And what I want to do is just get to some metal. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but right there is metal. That tells me that this is low here, okay? And also, there's a little bit metal here. So, I want to be careful how I handle this. Now, metal's starting to come through there already. This is very thin coat on here. When you have all the same color, using a flat board like that, when you have all the same color, you know that you're at the same level and that this would be smooth. So if I look at this at the moment, I can say, okay, I've touched here, I've touched in there, and I'm touching here. So this, when you run your hand across there, or you run your palm across that, you can feel is one even surface. Now it's got some scratch marks in it, so it's going to need some more body putty, you know, or some very thin putty, which I'll show you what I use for that. So now that I've gotten that far, I can come over here and basically do the same thing. And I don't want to flex this stick any more than I have to, okay? And I could be using that electric, or that pneumatic sander. The reason I'm not using it is because it'll come on, my air compressor will come on, and you won't be able to hear me. But now you can see that from here all the way across, I've already touched. So I would say that I'm going to let that go, and I'm going to work from there out. Now you can see obviously there's nothing here, no paint, and then there's paint there. So you want to take your time, and as minutely as you can, you want to work this stuff so that you have all the same surface. And that's the point of that. So when I was talking to you about screeding concrete, the point of getting something flat is to have the same surface, okay? So that's what I'm after. And if you read this properly and you look at this closely, wherever you have paint is a low spot, all right? So obviously, and I can turn this on its edge to do a little bit of different type of cutting to show myself something quickly, I can see that this is slightly low and this is high. That doesn't mean that I need more filler necessarily. It could, but it might mean that I could take this down lower. So let's just keep working on this and see what happens with it. So, and I'm running downhill, if you notice, because if you run this direction rather than straight across only, if you go straight across only, you're going to put a groove in the panel. If you go down like this, okay, you're not putting a groove in the panel, and you're actually working towards that rounded shape that we're trying to achieve in the fender. So now you can see I'm really taking a lot off of here, and I still haven't gotten down to that. But I might be able to get down to it. So I'm going to keep working on that. Okay, now you can see the metal starting to come through there a little bit. Or actually the primer that I had put on there, whatever I had put on. This line here is just the difference between, when you're mixing the body putty, you end up with different colors because you're not doing a perfect match of the body putty and the green coloring to harden it. So you get some lines there. So disregard that line. You're looking at the red. So now I've gone over that. I'm down to the metal here. I have a very little bit of red in there. So that tells me that the panel's not really bad. It has a pretty nice edge to it. Here I'm definitely through the metal at that little spot. I missed a little there. So just run over this a little bit. And this is telling me without a doubt, and I can even feel the lip here, that I need some filler in there. I need a little filler in here. So what you want to do is you want to take and hand do, at least this is how I do it, by hand. Again, if you have one of these, you can use it. I have the tool. The problem is I don't have the sandpaper. I have a really 40 grit paper on here that actually tears it up rather than making it nice. And with this featherweight body filler, if you use regular sandpaper, you'll end up with a much nicer job than you would if you used the pneumatic sander. So I can start up here wherever I'm going to start doing my work, and I can just sand all of that off. And again, look how hard that's cutting. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure on there, and that's why I say I really love 3M sandpaper, because it cuts and it doesn't hold the stuff on it. You know, I mean, I'm tapping it and it loses the crap that comes off of this that's considered waste. And then somewhere as you go around here, you're going to be off because the body panel turns. And it's somewhere about right in here. And if you look, that's exactly what's happening. So in other words, I'm running across here. I'm keeping my hands flat on the piece. And you can see that as I sand here, I'm not sure. Let me just point at this and see if you can see this. Yeah. You can see that as I'm going here, where the curvature runs off, which is right about here, I'm not taking any paint off. So again, what's this telling me? Well, I see metal here. I've got the curve there. I actually like the height of that curve, just the way it looks. So this is telling me I'm a little bit low. So I need to add some body putty to that. So I'm going to work down now from that, because that's sort of giving me an idea. Although I should finish this top here. Okay, I've taken off about all I can take there, because I'm getting spots that might end up high. And as soon as you see the metal, you want to stop sanding, because if you keep sanding, all you're doing is making divots in there, so it'll get worse. So as soon as you hit the metal, you stop. Okay, so, man, I wish I was in my 20s. Anyway, if you look at this, you can see low, 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 low spot in here. So this needs some body putty put on here. Now, to try and take body putty, okay, and let's say I had body putty on this spreader, to try and put that exactly where it's saying you need it is a little bit tough. I mean, you can go like this, you know, put some body putty on there. It doesn't matter which way you go, up, down, whatever. You can put some body putty on there, just a thin layer, and then re-sand this to see how it goes. The thing is that you don't want to be sanding onto the metal. So really, the best way to handle this would be to curve this in your hand, you know, put your finger in the middle and 2 fingers on the other side so you get a curve. Find the curve and just run body putty over this. And then go ahead and re-sand that. And if you keep doing this, even in the minute parts, like up at the top here where it's low, it's obviously low between here and here. That needs to be filled in. So we can fill that in. It's low here, we could fill that in. Or we could just go ahead and run a bead of body putty, you know, from one side all the way to the other and restart sanding again. And once you got this to a point where the whole thing is all one color, okay, or all been scratched by the sandpaper, then you know you're pretty much ready to stop sanding for form, and now you're going to sand for finish. So I use 80 grit to knock it down. I'm going to use 180 to basically sand it off to be able to primer it, and then if I use primer surfacer, which is a thickened version of paint, I will be able to sand that off if I want with something even heavier, maybe 220. And then that'll give me a surface that I can paint. So guys, that's basically how you put body putty on and how you work with it. I hope this is helpful to you that are looking at it. And just to be so that we're politically correct, although I hate that term, when I say guys, I mean girls and guys, okay? I'm just saying guys. So anyway, that's how it is. But that's how you get this like that. Now the rounded part I'll show you how to do later. Basically what you're after here is you can take sandpaper that's not on a stick, something you can run around that to get the shape. Let me just go around this for a second. Now I don't know if you can see that or not, but if you go around that, you can see that it's pretty much touching all the way over there. So I usually take the sandpaper like this and just take my time and rub down it. You know, let your fingers wrap around there and get a nice shape. Now this isn't always the best way to do it with your fingers, because your fingers can make grooves in it, but as long as you keep moving, you'll see that you're starting to get a nice shape there. And usually on a curve, especially an outside curve, nobody's going to come over here with a micrometer and measure this sucker unless you're, you know, with a bunch of insane people. But the point is that you'll get this nice and smooth. It'll blend in to this shape that you're needing back here. But again, just by looking at this, if I run the sandpaper like that, I can say this is low, this is high, and high. So you may have to add some filler in there. You have to look at this thing and read it, and just take for granted that it is not lying to you. Okay? This thing is telling you the truth when you look at it and say high, high, low. So if I'm at metal, like where that black spot is, this is actually low, this is right where I want it, and I need to fill this in. So guys, that's how you put body putty on, or that's how I do it to get started with the finishing. So I'll get back to you when I have something different to show. Have a good one.